the guys in the ring are probably going, "Holy shit! Now these guys got to come." When we got the gimmick, everybody knew, "Uh-oh, these guys are going to get the push." Winning the titles, that was a huge, huge deal. Brett and Jim, just two great guys. Bill's going to the ring, and I'm thinking, "Am I really second?" Or what? And all of a sudden the music hits again. I'm second. That was the biggest pop I ever heard. I kind of came up with a gimmick, and he said, "Well, what is it?" And I said, "The Repo Man." I'm honored. I tell my son all the time, I've had the greatest time in my life ever, and I'm still having.
Rewind, recap, relive. For over 50 episodes, the revolutionary force in wrestling interview.
My guest today is an absolute legend of the wrestling business. He smashed people as one half of Demolition, tormented people as the Repo Man, sympathized with Russia as Crusher Khrushchev. Please welcome former three-time WWF Tag Team Champion Barry Darsow.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course.
I'm a little underdressed compared to you.
For some reason, everyone says that. I don't know why they don't come dressed in a tux. But no, Barry, it's so awesome to have you on. Thank you again for making the time for this. And I want to get into your legendary career, but as someone who wore, so many faces and really made those gimmicks work and memorable and live in people's minds, I'd love to hear right off the bat which one you look back at most fondly.
All of them were unique and fun. I suppose the one, the Demolition Axe and Smash, I suppose, was the biggest because I was in the WWF. But when I went to WCW and I was the Blacktop Bully, I really, really liked that gimmick. And it just didn't last very long. So, but, Demolition Axe and Smash, that was my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, and clearly such a legendary run with that one too. Obviously captured gold. Is there any of those gimmicks, maybe the Blacktop Bully you just mentioned, that you wish had a longer run?
I wish the Blacktop Bully would have, because that would have been I would have been a top guy, and I would have been wrestling all the best at that time. But getting fired early kind of ruined that whole gimmick. So, but I really liked it.
For someone, if they didn't see the Blacktop Bully, can you explain what that gimmick was?
Yeah, I started off in the audience. I was a truck driver that just kind of hated Dustin Rhodes and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Yeah.
And I was in the audience and I was kind of heckling them all the time. And then I got thrown into jail. And then Colonel Parker came up with the $75,000 to bail me out. So Haku, who was Ming at the time, Colonel Parker and Ming came to the jail and they came up with the $75,000 and bailed me out. So then Colonel Parker was my manager, and then I was teamed up with, Ming and all different characters, and I had a really good time with it. It was fun.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Wow, I love the story though that was behind the Blacktop Bully, the bail and everything, and
Yeah,
starting in the crowd too. I feel like we saw that in the
yeah,
future happen, but that's cool that it started there with the Blacktop Bully. Well,
yeah.
to bring it back to the beginning for you, I don't know how many people are aware of all the future legends that you grew up around in Minnesota. It must have been a crazy time. Must have been like a rough bunch of guys, you guys, growing up
Yeah.
together. Who of those, of like the Rick Rudes and the Animals, and the Nikita Koloffs, who are you closest to of them?
Out of all of them, well, I kind of grew up with Rick Rude, and he lived about 3-4 blocks from me. So I don't know. It's hard to say. Kurt Hennig, I was such good friends with, and Nikita Koloff, went to school with him. But I mean, there's so many of the guys, and I broke in the business with the Road Warriors and Rick Rude. It was us four at Eddie Sharkey's camp, and there were so many guys that came out of there: Wayne Bloom, John Nord, Brady Boone, just Kevin Kelly, Nails,
Yeah.
the Warlord, Jesse Ventura, Bob Backlund, all of us guys. So it's hard to say which one I was best friends with, but I suppose Rick, I knew the longest, you know.
Well, yeah, and you'd end up working at a bar with Hawk Animal, and was Rick Rude at the bar too?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
In fact, Rick Rude was the first one there, and he
okay.
got us all hired there. So it was a strip bar during the day and live bands at night. And it was a crazy, crazy place. So every night we were fighting our way out of that place. It was something. So that's when Eddie Sharkey, who was a bartender there, he after work one day he came up and he said, "I got to get you guys into wrestling."
Yeah.
And he's the one that started us. He had a camp, and we went through his camp, and that's how we all got started.
Wow. And we've heard stories of Hawk and Animal and how crazy they were once they were in the business. And of course you lock up with them later down the line in your career. But how were they early on, Hawk and Animal?
Well, they were a lot crazier early on than they were in the wrestling business. We had to settle them down a little bit before they got in the business, But they were great guys to work with. It was just sad that they died.
Yeah.
I was with Animal just a few weeks before he passed away, and he was doing incredible. Just got married, was doing really well. It was a real shocker, you know.
Yeah. No, that was I mean, that's such a legendary team too that the wrestling world lost. With Animal, was he the first one to really go get a tryout of the group of you guys?
Well, actually, Rick Rude went to Canada for just a couple of days and came back. And then Animal was the first one after him that Ole Anderson brought him down to Atlanta. And
Okay.
then so he was down there as the Road Warrior. And then when he came back, then that's when Hawk was the next in line to go. So that's where Hawk and Animal went out. And then I ended up going to Hawaii and New Zealand and all that for
Okay,
Liam
so
Ivia.
I wonder, were they always planning to be a team, or did it just so happen because they went back to back out there?
It just so happened. Yeah, Ole had he came down to our camp and seen what we look like and everything, and he really liked the look of Hawk and Animal together.
Yeah.
And I was bigger than those guys, so he was going to bring me down in another way later on. But since I got the call to go to Hawaii, I ended up going to Hawaii right away. I didn't wait
Okay.
for him.
And like I mentioned in the intro, one of your early gimmicks was Crusher Khrushchev. And I imagine that the heat you received in some towns was insane for being a turncoat type of Russian
Oh,
sympathizer. Can you tell us any stories of the heat that you got for that gimmick?
oh my gosh, yeah. When I was down in Watts' territory, when he first named me, he says, "Barry, you're going to be Crusher Khrushchev, and you're going to go on an interview, and you're going to tell everybody you're going to bury Americans." And Nikolai Volkov was going to be, my partner. So what had happened one time, I was in a match with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. We were in Oklahoma City, and we were having a coal miner's glove match, and Duggan was just getting ready to beat me, and then Nikolai Volkov hit the ring. We just started putting the boots to Duggan in the ring. So Nikolai was holding him. I put the coal miner's glove on. And I was hitting him in the head. And when I was doing that, the cop outside was so mad at us. They really believed that we were the Russians and we were the bad guys. He put a chair in the ring to give to Duggan.
Oh my God.
And Nikolai went and grabbed the chair and then started hitting Duggan with the chair. Well, the whole crowd started jumping on the cop. And it was like a riot in the ring. And they all started coming. And Duggan told me, he looks at me, and he goes, "Crush, get out of here now." And I grabbed Nikolai. I said, "Nikolai, we got to get out of the ring." People were coming down from the second deck, coming down to get into the ring. So to get out of the ring, we were hooking and jabbing all the way back to the back.
Wow.
And I don't know how many people were punching and kicking and everything, because if we would have stayed longer, they would have got us. But we got out of there and we had a car ready to go. It was a cab, and we already had our bags in there. And I told the guy ahead of time, I said, now when we come running back here, I said, you got to get this cab out of here. And it was, you parked underneath the garage and you had to drive up a ramp to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was watching the matches and he was laughing and he was, like, this is great, And I said, go, go, go. And he was just taking his time. I said, you don't understand. You got to get out of here now or we ain't getting out of here. We went up the ramp and they completely totaled his car. I mean, they threw rocks and bottles and you name it. And he got out of there. We got to the airport. He goes, who's going to pay for my car? And Nikolai goes, we told you to get out of there and you didn't go. It's all up to you. But I mean, his car was total.
That's crazy.
That
You
was
must
just
have.
one. There's a million stories. I had another story where me and Ivan Koloff, we were in, my memory's not real good, but we were in Asheville, North Carolina, and I had Ricky Morton in a rear chin lock. And Ricky looks up at me and he says, hey, Crush, he goes, don't look, but there's a guy pointing a gun right at your head in the audience.
Oh.
So I kind of looked up slow, and here's the guy with the gun pointing right at me. And he goes, I'm gonna take you down and I'm gonna fight you and I'm gonna give you a drop kick and get out of the ring. So that's what we did. He came back up on me, gave me a drop kick, got out of the ring. The cops came and grabbed him and took him out of there.
That is insane.
We had another night where I was wrestling Terry Taylor and grabbed the rope and I put it around his neck and I was hanging him over the top rope. And Nikolai came in and was holding it. I went outside and I started punching Terry in the stomach. He was hanging over the top rope getting hung. And then Nikolai looks at me and he goes, knife. I look back, there's a guy coming to stab me. I jumped out of the way. Then the guy took the knife and he tried to cut the rope off of Terry Taylor. When he did it, he cut Nikolai's boot. Nikolai let him go. And here's the guy with the knife. And the cops came and grabbed him, but they didn't even do anything to him. So there's a lot of stories like that.
What town were some of these in? Like, what was that knife one in? Do you remember?
That one was Alexandria, Louisiana. I'll never forget it. The one with the knife and Terry Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was Asheville, North Carolina, Ricky Morton. The first one I was telling you about was in Oklahoma City. I don't know if it was Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Oklahoma City.
Okay.
It was one of those two towns. So,
I mean, you must have felt very successful, albeit terrified in those moments as Kruschev. Yeah.
I did my job. It was that's what I was supposed to do, and the fans took it serious.
Yeah. I mean, that's insane. So, from what I understand, so your career goes when you go to WWF, you leave Jim Crockett Promotions for WWF. And I understand there was some type of dispute with the payday that led you to WWF. So you must have felt pretty great when you got that call to go there. It must have been like a good reassured feeling. Yeah.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And the way that worked out is, when I quit Crockett, Earl Hebner called me up and he says, hey, Barry, you want me to talk to his brother? David was a referee up there. He said, you want me to talk to David and see if we can get you into the WWF? I said, shit, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. And then I was at Ricky Steamboat's gym and Ricky said to me, hey, Barry, I'll talk to Vince for you and, see if you can get up there. And I said, God, I really appreciate it. He goes, no, I'm going to call Vince right now. So, couldn't get a hold of him. The next day he got a hold of him and he called me up. He says, Barry, I talked to Vince. He said, we don't know what to do, but your name's in the hat, and I said, Ricky, you don't know how much I appreciate that.
Wow.
So it was about a week later, then Vince called me and he said, you got some friends. He said, they're all pulling for you and I'd like to come up and meet you. He says, I've been watching your work. I like your work and I got something, I might have something for you. So a couple of days later, they flew me up, picked me up in a limo, brought me to the office, and they had a book with all these different characters in it. And he said, "This is the one I want you to be." But and it looked a little bit different than the demolition that we were doing. Um, but he said, "How would you like to do that?" I said, "Vince, whatever you want. I'm ready to do it." But I told him, I said, "I got to have a break." I said, "I've been on the road for about 4 years, and I've been working, double shots. I've been, I'm tired. I just need a little bit of time off. I need to train, get my mind right, and be with my wife."
Mhm.
So he says, "Perfect." He says, "Let me let me talk to Bill Eadie. He would be your partner." And I said, "Bill Eadie, really?" And he said, "You know Bill?" I said, "Well, I met him a few times." I said, "That was a mass superstar." I said, "One of the greatest wrestlers of all time." I said, "Definitely, I would love to be his partner." And so he says, "Well, Bill's in Japan right now. So when he gets back, I'll talk to him and see if he'll want to be your partner. And, we'll work it out. I'll give him your phone number. He'll call you." So I got home and I told the wife, I said, I got a job if Bill likes me. She says, "Well, have you ever done anything bad to Bill or anything?" I said, "No," but I said, "All my friends are his friends and I know all his friends." So I said, you know, and I met Bill before in Atlanta. So I said, I got a feeling I'm going to get the job. So Bill called me up and we talked. And he says, "Well, I'll tell Vince that we're going to start the tag team." So Vince called me up and he says, "Barry," he says, "I know you want some time off." He says, "Bill's going back to Japan." He says, "How about give you 6 weeks to 2 months off? We'll sign a contract
Mhm.
so you can get paid while you're at home, relaxing and training." And I said, "Perfect." So that's what I did. And we started off and I was Demolition Smash.
And that's how
So
it all began. That's crazy to think of.
yeah,
And like I said, must have felt so good to get that guaranteed contract too, right?
yeah. Well, it's they're guaranteed, but they're not guaranteed for Vince. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I I knew I was going to make some money while I was off, but really, you don't get paid unless you work, and they can always shit can you anytime they wanted with those contracts. But it was really a great feeling, knowing that I had a job and I had some weeks off, and I went from being partners with Ivan and Nikita Koloff, who I loved both of them, and I
Mhm.
hated to leave there, but I'm thinking maybe I'm going to be going to Japan, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden I get a call with the WWF, and that's where I wanted to go. So
That book that Vin showed you with the characters, do you remember any other characters that you saw in there?
no, he kind of flashed through it, but then it was the one he showed me was like a real hardcore demolition,
Okay.
with big, huge spikes and, all over. And, and I, and I was looking at it and I didn't even, I was wondering how in the world could I even wear something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I sure don't want to do that, but I ain't going to turn down a job with Vince McMahon. You know
Yeah,
what I
I'll
mean?
do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, yeah, it was good. And then when I ended up starting to work, that's when my wife ended up getting pregnant, and a year later I had my son. So it was huge.
Yeah.
What a great year that was for me.
No, definitely a huge point in your life. So, since that sketchbook, Vince had that sketchbook of Demolition. Did you ever hear if was Demolition fully Vince's creation, or was there other like outside forces that helped create it?
Well, actually, it was Bill and Randy Colley were the ones that created the gimmick,
Okay.
and brought it to Vince, and Vince really liked it. And what was crazy was I never even knew that Randy Colley and Bill actually wrestled as the Demolition. I never knew any of
Oh.
that because when I'm down in Crockett's territory, I never watched the WWF
Mhm.
because we were on the road and we were working, and I was so busy there I didn't know what was going on. So when he said to be partners with Bill Eadie, I didn't know that was already a gimmick. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? until when I talked to Bill, and he told me that it didn't work out with Randy. So,
So it was a win-win then. Yeah, you come in and Bill gets another partner, one that he
right,
likes
right,
more now. Yeah, and it works. It works for the
yeah,
tag team. A huge part of Demolition, I feel, was the theme song that I still hear wrestling fans talking about to this day.
right.
Did you guys have any input on the theme, or did Bill, or how did that
No,
come about?
no. In fact, Jimmy Hart came to us. You know, we're really good friends with Jimmy, and we were talking, and he says, Barry and Bill, they're going to create a song for you guys, and he says, and it's going to be a kick-ass song. And so we said, great, because once you get a song, back then, and that's your ring music,
Yeah.
you're getting pushed. It's not, you're just not some jabroni. So he says, in the next couple of weeks, I'll let you guys hear a little version of it. So we were at TV, and he played a little bit of it, and it didn't have the lyrics to it yet. So we're listening to him. Oh yeah, this is going to be good. So then I asked him. I said, Jimmy, who's going to sing the song or whatever? And that's when he said Rick Derringer is going to sing it. And both Bill and I looked and we went, holy shit, this is going to be a good song. If they're hiring somebody to sing it.
Yeah.
So then we're at TV, and all of a sudden the song plays. First time we heard it with the lyrics, here comes the axe, you know, and we went through the curtain. We both looked at it and went, holy shit, that's the best song coming out of anybody. So
Yeah.
that's how it all started. Jimmy Hart was the guy,
It's
you
so
know.
catchy. And it was on the radio, I think, right?
Oh yeah, on the radio, it was everywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did
Yeah.
it?
In fact,
Oh yeah, let's hear.
uh, at at home, my son's school would play it. It was all over the radio, and then it was on the video games. It was all over the place. So it was good.
Did anyone backstage in particular like your song?
Oh, everybody did, and I think they were a little upset because it was so good.
Yeah,
Because everybody just kind of had some music, and it was just generic stuff. But ours was the real deal. You know.
yeah. It was very unique and catchy. I mean, even probably when they're in the ring waiting for you guys to come smash them, they're singing along, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. The guys in the ring are probably going, "Holy shit! Now these guys got to come."
Well, one of Demolition's first big feuds is the British Bulldogs. And I hear so many people still talk about that feud to this day. You guys had great chemistry. Do you have any memories of working with Dynamite and Davey?
Oh, those guys they were so easy, and they were over so much. They were a lot of fun to work with. And what was so horrible though was Dynamite. He hurt his back really bad, and he had
Mhm.
back surgery.
Yeah.
And when we were working with him, you know, I asked him. I said, how's your back? He goes, oh, don't worry about my back. And that's all Bill and I were thinking of, was don't hurt Dynamite. But you didn't even know he was hurt. He just went out there and did it. Still took the wild bumps, did everything, and you tried to protect him the best you could. But yeah, he was a real professional and very fun to work with, both him and Davey Boy. And we were good friends outside the ring also.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy, even with that back, because that injury, of course, like very well known, like it changed his career, a lot of people say, but interesting to know that in the ring, it's still, he was able to perform. He gave it his all.
Oh, oh yeah. I mean, he was limited to certain things, and we were careful with what we did with him. It's not like we're going to go slam him on the floor or do whatever. We tried to protect him, and because we wanted to work with him every night. If he got hurt, then we couldn't work with him. You
Yeah,
know, and we had a good run with those guys. It was a lot of fun.
that's cool to hear. Well, we've heard stories of Mr. Fuji's insane ribs. All wrestling fans have. You two had the pleasure of being managed by Mr. Fuji. Do any ribs come to mind on the road with him?
You know, Usually when he did the ribs, you didn't know it was Fuji, so you couldn't tell for sure if it was him or not.
Okay.
And he never ribbed us. because I suppose he's thinking, well, his money is with us. He don't want to rip us and screw that up. So, you
Sad.
know,
Yeah.
I heard a lot of rumors what he has done. I don't know how true they are, but you know, he was the king of the rivers, you know.
No, absolutely. And the legend lives on, but that's funny that he didn't do it to his own guys, though. So the manager, it extended even backstage. He was your manager.
Well, you know, he was actually a real manager to us too, you know, and we traveled
Oh,
together. He would tell us, you know, don't do this in the ring, do this in the ring. I think maybe you should do this kind of stuff because, you know, he was a wrestler for many years, so you know he knew the business. He knew what looked good and didn't look good, and he wasn't scared to tell us, "Don't do that again," you
yeah.
know. And we listened to him.
Wow. That's such a cool relationship.
Yeah,
Can you take us back to the night at WrestleMania 4 when you and Axe capture the tag team belts for the first time?
yeah, you know, like I can't remember all the details and everything, but that was when we were at Trump Plaza,
Yeah.
and I met Donald Trump and his wife back then. Great people. Um, we didn't know we were going to win the titles that night. Uh, we knew we were going to, um, right before the match happened, that's when they came out and said that we were going to win the titles. And we were supposed to work a big program with Tom Zink and Rick Martel.
Okay.
And something, I don't know what the real story was why Tom Zink left, but he ended up quitting. That's when Tito came in. So uh, now we're going to work an angle with those guys. The best thing, you know, for the Demolition to get over and to become real heels was to beat those two good-looking baby faces and cheat. So um, when we went through the curtain, you know, I've already had so many matches in my career and everything. And what a lot of people don't tell you, you know, it's great to be in the big show, but it's a real pain in the ass too, because you got to get there the day before. You got all this press, you got all the interviews, you got all this stuff to do, and then you're out in your match for 15, 20 minutes and you got to perform because, you know, that's the big show.
Yeah.
So, you know, by the time you get to wrestling, you're so wore out and everything, you don't even want to wrestle anymore, you know. But you know, when we found out we were getting the titles, and here I'm just a new guy up in the WWF, it was pretty exciting for me.
Oh,
And on the finish, Fuji was supposed to kind of gimmick the cane a little bit, so you know, put a cut in it so it could break easy. Well, Fuji's rib there was he didn't do that. So when Bill got the cane and hit Martel with the cane, it was supposed to break and shatter. It didn't. He hit him and really hit him, and it just and Rick was you know. But so I guess Fuji did rib us on that one, and Fuji was outside laughing his head off, you know.
that's crazy.
So
So it's a real
yeah,
game. He did rip you, but it still was protecting you guys, I guess, in the long run.
exactly. But
Oh my
you
God.
know, but winning the titles, that was a huge deal, you know. Yeah. So you know, back to when I first went up there, you know, so this was like a year before that when I started there.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I've already, you know, wrestled Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair and you know the Road Warrior, you know, all big name guys down in the South in the NWA and everything.
Yeah.
And when I got the word to go to the WWF, it seemed like you know the stars were much bigger there. You know, you had Hulk Hogan, you had you know Jimmy Snuka, Paul Orndorff, you know
Yeah.
Morocco, because the TV just kind of made you bigger stars. It seemed like it wasn't that the guys were wrestlers were any different than where we were, but it just kind of seemed that way, you know.
Yeah.
And the first time I got in the locker room, now I'm probably the youngest guy in the territory. And back then, to make it to the WWF, you had to be very experienced to be able to even, you know, be in a match there.
Yeah.
So I've already had, 3, 4 years of wrestling every single day. So I was pretty experienced, but I still had a lot to learn. When I walked in the locker room, I was with Bill and everybody knew Bill. So it gave me instant credibility being with Bill. So when I walk in, first guy I meet, Don Morocco, Jimmy Snuka, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, all these guys going in a circle, shaking everybody's hand, and it
Yeah.
was like they've known me forever, you know,
Wow.
and I'm the young boy of the dressing room, and of course, you don't say a word. All you do is listen. And even to this day, I'm the young boy with axe. When when we go to do autograph deals, we get into a car. First thing I say is, Bill, why don't you take the front seat? Just for respect.
Hmm.
And he says, no, Barry, you take it. I'll take the back. You can have more leg room up front and everything. Well, after all the years, I found out he goes back there and he takes a nap because whoever's driving us around, they're talking all the time to the person in the front.
Oh, that's so
So,
funny.
yeah.
He's always, it's the veteran tricks, I guess. That's so nice that you were so accepted though early on.
Yeah. Oh, unbelievable. And I love the guys. It was great. But now there was a little jealousy too, when when we got the gimmick, everybody knew, uh-oh, these guys are going to get the push.
Yeah.
So at first, some of the guys we were working with, it was a little tough because they want to get over and we have to get over.
Yeah.
So, they didn't know how we were going to work, and the way Bill and I always worked was we beat up somebody, but then when it's time for their comeback, we fly for them and put them over.
Mhm.
And it took a while for everybody to realize that that's how we worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the first month or two, or the first time you worked with somebody, the matches were a little tough. But then after they worked with us, piece of cake, then everybody wanted to work with us.
Wow.
So yeah.
And that first reign that you guys had was so impressive too. I mean, the longest, everyone knows, longest tag reign in history up until 2015, I think. So to have a reign
Yeah.
that long, I mean, did you guys expect that?
No, and we never even thought about it like that until, they started talking about it in 2015 or 14 or whatever it
Oh, that's
was.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh yeah, we held it 3 times and we held it longer than anybody. I never even thought about it, you know.
Did you have any conversation with New Day when they broke it in 2015?
No, I've never even met them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I've on Twitter or whatever, I congratulated them, and people have done interviews and asked what I thought, and I thought, they seem like great guys, and I've heard from other friends that said that they were the greatest guys in the world, and that's who you want to beat your record is good
That's
guys.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, and somebody's got to beat it. So
Exactly. And I
as long
mean,
as they're
what,
good,
30 years is great, right? That's a good,
yeah, that's a hell of a run.
that is a really good run. And not only that, first team, I think, to win it 3 times as well. So, like, you have two
Yeah.
records going there. I mean, that's Demolition definitely had a great legacy with the belts. Another great feud, though, for Demolition along the run was the Hart Foundation. And I'd love to
Oh,
hear another, I mean, more guys you had great chemistry with over your time there. Do you have any memories of wrestling with them?
oh yeah. We had a lot of incredible matches, and I've known Jim Neidhart from when I was down in Louisiana in Mid South when I was Crusher Khrushchev down there,
Oh,
and when I went to Florida Championship Wrestling when I was Crusher Khrushchev, he became my partner. So when I was down there, I was still a Russian sympathizer, but we kind of made Jim a Russian sympathizer also. So we both had the heat, and then we had David Sierra was the Cuban assassin. He was our
mhm.
manager. So we had big heat down there in Florida too.
Wow.
And Jim and I were such good friends. And then when we both went up to the WWF, it was like, family reunion, and all of a sudden now we're wrestling each other.
Yeah.
And Brett and Jim just two great guys, and it was very sad when Jim died. Also, it was terrible. But I still talk to Brett every once in a while. He's a very good friend, and I remember one night at SummerSlam, we were in Madison Square Gardens. The cane was a major part of it, and we had a spot where we were going to get the cane in the corner, and then Brett was going to run, and how he hits that turnbuckle so hard.
Yeah.
He was going to hit the turnbuckle, but the cane was going to be in there, and that's how we were going to get the heat on him. And the
Okay.
cane was going to shatter into pieces. Well, we told the camera guys, we told everybody, we said, okay, when this spot happens, you have to have the camera right on that cane in the corner, because we're going to throw Brett in there and he's going to hit that cane and it's going to shatter. You got to get that on TV. And that was the big part of the match, because we were getting the heat on him then, Well, the cameramen were about 5 seconds late, and all you'd seen on TV was the cane fall in the mat, and then the announcers had to go, "Oh my God," But that I'll never forget that. And then right away, we were in the ring. I was wrestling, and Jim says to me, "I think they missed the cane," because the red light wasn't on.
Yeah.
The red light was on over here. It wasn't. And I said, "Holy shit." So we're talking about that in the ring, But fun, great match. And to wrestle those guys in Madison Square Gardens, that's big time. So.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's crazy though. At least Fuji didn't didn't give you a real cane. At least half of it was good that time. Oh
Yeah.
man, if only it was caught though. Good spot though.
Yeah.
Another really cool spot for you and Axe was during Royal Rumble when number one and number two is Demolition. We've seen it recreated a little bit since with brother and brother, tag team partner, but I think that was the first time with you and Axe. Yeah, can you talk about that and what the discussion was like between you two beforehand?
Well, we didn't know. Bill and I didn't know.
Wow.
So before the matches were starting, they were kind of giving everybody, when they're going to go out, and when you go to the ring, and then when you're wrestling out there, when your turn was to go out. And for some reason, there was about 5 or 6 of us that we didn't know what was going on really, and we're all sitting around waiting to go out to the ring, and there's monitors you can watch and everything, and all of a sudden the Demolition music hits, goes, and I look at Bill and I'm like, holy shit. And then the agents go, Bill, you're out, you're number one. And they told us just a couple minutes before, Bill, you're out 1, Barry, you're out 2, Andre the Giant, you're 3, so we just found out.
Yeah.
So Bill going to the ring, and I'm thinking, am I really second? Or what? And all of a sudden the music hits again, I'm second. So now I go out there, and it was kind of like, you're better when you don't know what's going on than when you know what's going on. I think that's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
So we got in the ring, and I'm looking at Bill, and we're kind of laughing, and Bill goes, "What are we going to do?" And pow, I hit Bill, and then so then we just started going at it, and the crowd was like, "What the?" They're going crazy. They thought we were just going to go stand out there and wait for the next guy to come.
Yeah.
Well, of course we got to do it. So then when Andre comes walking out to the ring, we stopped. I looked at Bill and I go, "Thank God this big old son of a gun's coming out here." I said, "I'd rather get hit by him than you." And he says, "What do you mean? You're the one that's tater." So we were kind of laughing. Then he got in the ring and we got right on Andre, and Andre took a bump for us, in the ropes. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And what was so good about it was new, and it was something that hasn't been done like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was so unprecedented, and for the fans there, I'm sure they were like, "What do you mean Demolition's going on against each other?"
Yeah.
Like, must have been crazy. Was that the first time on screen, at least in WWF, that you and Bill ever locked up?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the see. And what was so good about back then was, they'd come and they'd give us the finish, and that was it. And then we did it. We worked out our own matches and did everything. So when we got to talking to our opponents, we just kind of said, all right, here's what we'll do to get into the finish, and let's do a little bit of that and a little bit of that, and so we wouldn't call all these spots. We didn't know what we were doing. We'd get in the ring and you'd kind of feel it out, and you'd have a wrestling match, and it just worked that way. And they don't do that nowadays. Nowadays they have the whole match is scripted pretty much.
Yeah.
Just like their promos are scripted. When we did it, Vince would just say, okay, just mention, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that you're going against, Martel and Tito and, blah, blah, blah.
You're like
So
bullet
then,
points more. Yeah.
yeah. And then we would be ourselves and we'd do the interview. And that's how it was. Now they don't do that, but also back then, we'd do an interview for every town we're going to be in. So say we're going to be on the road for 2 weeks before the next TV, you might mention, so you're going to have about 16, 17 matches in that time. So you'd have 16 interviews. I'm going to wrestle Barbarian Warlord in, Minneapolis, Minnesota, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden you're done with that interview. Then, okay, we're going to be against the Hart Foundation in Green Bay, Wisconsin, blah, blah, So your day of interviews was, a couple hours long, That's if you did it in one take. Some guys didn't do it in one take. They'd be in there all day long,
I can't
So,
imagine you keep up the energy for that, and like for each town, give them a fair amount of energy.
oh, you had to, or you'd have to redo the interview. It had to be right on the money.
Well, you mentioned number 3 was Andre the Giant, and you, of course, crossed paths with Andre a bunch. The Colossal Connection took the
Yeah.
titles from you once, and I think you actually beat the Colossal Connection for the titles down the road. But so you had a lot of interaction with Andre. What are some favorite Andre stories that come to mind when you think back?
I had one where I was in the ring with him, and I made a comeback on him, and I used to hit him pretty good, and we got back in the dressing room, and I used to play cribbage with him all the time back there, and
Oh, that's
And he
cool.
looked at me. He looked at me and he goes, "Boss." He called me boss, or hey, smash. And I'd say, "Yeah, yeah." What? He'd say, next time on the comeback, he said, lay it in a little bit more. I said, "Lay it in, really? You want me to lay it?" He goes, "Yeah, so I can sell it more." I said, "Okay." So we're having the match in Toronto, at the Sky Dome for the big title match. And I'm making a comeback, and I go and I nail him. Boom. And I mean, I hit him good. And you could hear it. And he goes back and he goes, "Not that hard," And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I hit this big old huge guy. He's going to kill me.
Mhm.
And he was ribbing,
Oh,
because
wow.
he had that set up from way, way back before. So that was a good Andre story.
That was great. Oh, you must have been nervous in the moment, though. Yeah, he's.
Oh, I was scared to go back in the dressing room, because I thought, oh, this guy's going to kick my ass. But I had a lot of good times with Andre,
Yeah.
and Bill was friends with him for so long, and then
Right.
that's how I got that's how
Superstar.
I got to get close with Andre.
Yeah.
And like I say, we played cribbage a lot, and we drank quite a few beers together.
You got
I
to.
never I never tried to drink more than him, because you
Yeah.
couldn't. But
Foolish endeavor. Yeah.
he was just a really, really nice guy to certain people. Other people he wasn't real cordial with.
Hmm.
Um, I think a lot of it was he didn't know who was really his friends,
Yeah.
and we were really his friends, you know. So
Well, how about the other member of the Colossal Connection in Haku?
oh,
Yeah, you
Haku,
gotta you gotta say a good Haku story because his toughness is that of legend.
one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. He if you were down and needed something, and you asked him, Haku, can I do, he'd be the first one there to help you and do whatever you want to do.
Wow.
And yeah, just a gentleman. And what's funny is you'd go out at night, you'd have a few beers or whatever, and people would pick on him. And it was like, when you look at him, you'd go, who in the right mind would pick on him? And he would always say, please, please, just leave us alone. We just want to, and then the guys would just egg him on and egg him. And pretty soon he'd have the look on his face, it's like, Haku, yeah, don't even worry about it. And the next thing you know, I watched him one night. He warned this guy, I don't know how many times, please leave us alone. And he was treating this girl really bad that used to, give us rides and everything. And he said something to that girl, and he stood up and kicked the guy in the chest. And the guy flew, I bet, 10 feet in the air, and I'm not exaggerating, and landed. And he sat back down and finished what he was talking about like nothing even happened. And we were like, holy shit, I mean, but he didn't want to do that,
Yeah.
He
had
was just, he was a gentleman. And, I suppose people thought, well, I'm going to try this big son of a gun, and if I beat him, I'm the greatest. But if I lose, I just lost to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I see him on the road now, and the first thing he does is Barry, and gives me a big hug. And, he's that nice of a guy,
That's nice.
I love him. Yeah.
It's cool that he's able to have those two sides, and like reluctantly he protected that woman. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and all the guys are the same, it's not just him that does that. It's, I would do the same thing. Bill would do the same, all of us, sometimes you got to scrap and, so whenever you hear, somebody wants to hear a story about him, and you tell a story, he's not the only one that gets picked on and things happen,
Right.
I mean, all of us have gone through things where we've had to hit people and kick people, and so I don't want to make it sound like that's what he does.
Oh no,
No,
of course. Yeah, that's
no,
that makes sense. Absolutely. Haku is just one of many. Any of you would have done what he did.
yeah.
Other old buddies that you were able to reconnect with in WWF, the Road Warriors, like we mentioned earlier, you grew up with them. What is it like hearing the Road Warrior pop when you were in WWF?
Well, I heard it when I was with Ivan. Me and Ivan wrestled the Road Warriors down in Crockett's territory.
Yeah.
And they were over big there. And we were, the heels, the Russians against the USA's team,
Yeah.
I mean, that was the biggest pop I ever heard. When we were up in the WWF, we got the pops too. And when we went against those guys, the fans up there liked us more than them. And because now you got an outside team coming up there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was hard for it was kind of hard for them coming in, and we had an angle with them right away because we were both over, you know what I mean? So it wasn't the big pop like you would think it would be, and the matches weren't very good either.
Like even, yeah.
There were tough matches, and they were great guys, but they were tough matches to have because the office wanted them over and kind of wanted to turn us heels again, but the people weren't after it. You know what I mean? It was a tough situation.
Wow. Were you able, since you grew up with Hawk and Animal, was there that type of chemistry there? Maybe like outside of the ring more than inside of it?
Yeah. It was, but it was different in Charlotte with Ivan and myself because we were established heels,
right?
And they were established baby faces. In the WWF, we were both kind of baby faces, but they were actually kind of heels.
Yeah.
And they wanted them to be baby faces, and that's what made it kind of tough. But we got along great, and we had the best matches we could. we would do anything for them. They'd do anything for us. So it just, it was tough, and sometimes you just have those matches.
Yeah. I love that you do have a positive outlook, though. It seems on most of your career with all these guys you're saying, like you would do anything for them, though. Which
Oh, I would. In fact, I don't believe I've ever hurt anybody in the ring,
Mhm.
but I have so many injuries because I'm protecting everybody, and that's how
Yeah.
most of the wrestlers are. When you see the guys limping and barely walking and their backs are bad, usually it's because they've protected their opponent. So they're taking the blunt of the bump instead of giving it to the guys, if that makes sense. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Very selfless
Yeah.
in the ring and making sure the best match comes out of it.
Well, yeah, when I was trained, it was you take care of your opponent more than you do yourself. That's how I learned. You
Okay.
never hurt your opponent, but you make it look like you're killing them. And then your opponent, when you hit him, he sells so much that it makes it look like you tore his head off, but you really didn't tear his head off.
Yeah.
And that's how I was taught. And that's how the Road Warriors were taught. The Road Warriors were a little stiffer though than everybody, and that's they were told to do that. So they would actually kind of apologize ahead of time and say, hey, we got to be a little stiff, and then
My
you'd say,
God.
well, we're gonna be stiff back with you. You know what I mean? So you'd have a stiff match. And and some people love that. They wanted you to be stiff to them. We didn't like to be, real stiff with them, and we weren't real stiff with a lot of people. We were just kind of, we wanted people when they hit you, you wanted to feel it,
Yeah.
but never get hurt. And that's how we wanted to work with everybody. We hit you, you felt it, so you knew you better sell it, but it
Yeah.
wasn't to hurt you.
Well, if I could ask about a specific match with the Road Warriors, that there was a time where it was Demolition and the Road Warriors against, or Demolition versus the Road Warriors and Ultimate Warrior. And I'd love to get into some of those six-man tag matches and what it was like being in there with the Ultimate Warrior, really at some of his height of his career.
Um, he was a tough one to wrestle because he had his few things that he did. So if you could let him do that and get out of there, then without getting hurt, then you were successful.
Yeah.
But he was over big time, you know, and we always didn't want him to outshine the Road Warriors. We wanted the Road Warriors and him to be equal in the
Mhm.
match. You know what I mean? That's kind of how we did with every opponent. Even you know, it's just how we were. If we're partners with Hulk and Jake, we thought we were even with them when we have matches. We didn't think Hulk was bigger than us or Jake was bigger than us because we're all stars. You know what I
Right.
mean? So that's kind of how we treated the matches. One night we were in Minneapolis. It was the Road Warriors and the Ultimate Warrior, and my mom never watched wrestling before. So I said, Mom, I got front row tickets for you. You got to come to the matches. So she met Andre the Giant and met a few of the guys and
That's cool.
everything. And so she's sitting in the front row, and I'm doing a spot with the Ultimate Warrior. And I tell them, I said, when I got him and I'm hitting him, and I said, when I throw you in the corner, I'm going to come running in, give me an elbow to the face. So I get him in the corner, and I come running in, and he doesn't give me the elbow, and then I hit him, and then he gives me the elbow. When he gave me the elbow, he knocked out my two front teeth,
Ah,
and one of my teeth fell out down the ring, boom, 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 fell right down by my mom's
no.
feet. So this one's loose, and I pulled it out and I put it in my trunks, and my mouth is bleeding and everything. I looked down, my mom's like this, and I got out of the ring and I went over and I picked up my tooth, right by her feet. I said, Mom, this doesn't happen like this, you know. And, and I put the other tooth in my trunks and I go back in and he didn't even know he knocked my teeth out. So we finished the match and everything and get back in the dressing room. And he looks at me, what happened? And I said, you knocked my teeth out. He goes, when did I do that? I said, that elbow in the corner that you screwed up. You know, and he was so apologetic. I mean, he felt so bad, but it's just he's so wild. He was out of control, like, you know, and
Yeah.
he did the spot wrong. And I shouldn't have even done that, but I thought, well, you know, it'll be in a good, easy spot. I just turn my head and you get me. Well, I'm looking right at him, pow, right square.
God.
So,
What was your
so
mom
anyway,
like after the show?
never watch wrestling ever again. That was the end of it. So, so yeah, that was. But we had great matches with them. You know, it was good. That was, you know, Axe Smash and Crush. You know,
Yeah.
and Crush was just a great guy, fun in the ring and fun out of the ring. Oh, he was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too many of the guys died too young.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just turning 65 right now, and I feel really good. You know, I hurt pretty bad, but you know, a lot of these guys have died in their 40s and their 50s, and it's just like, holy cow, you
Yeah.
know, unbelievable.
I know. A really special era of guys too. It's a shame that.
Yeah, I see posters that fans come with to
Mhm.
sign, and you look at the poster, and almost everybody's dead on the posters. It's like, oh my goodness, you
Yeah.
know.
It's great that you're staying busy though too. Before we went on, you had mentioned you're building a house, right? And you're able to spend so much time with your family now. No more
Yeah.
traveling, really, at least, you know, except
Well,
the conventions, obviously the conventions, but
holy cow, I'm traveling this month. In fact, I'm in Toronto on Saturday. I'm
wow.
in Buffalo the following weekend. I'm in South Bend, Indiana the following weekend from there. The next weekend, I'm back in Canada. Then I have about 8 weeks where each weekend I'm on the road again. And I
Well,
called
I
up Bill.
take that back.
I called up Bill. I go, Bill, what are you doing? He goes, well, it just worked out that way because, you know, we had an agreement that we were only going to do this, you know, 2 times a month, you know, but it just ended up being where, you know, I'd book one and he'd say, well, I just booked that, you know, and it was like, well, we can't cancel now. So,
Yeah.
you know, but it, it is, you know, how much longer are we going to be able to do this? So you might as well do it while you can.
Yeah.
And it is fun seeing the fans and talking to all the fans again. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm so lucky and so, you know, how do you say it? You know, I'm honored. You know, I tell my son all the time. You know, I've had the greatest time in my life ever, and I'm still having it.
That's so cool. Living legends, really. And I said it earlier, positivity, but you seem to be beaming it. Every interview I watch of you, you are just have a great outlook, I feel. And it's cool that you're
Oh,
looking forward and you're still happy to meet all the fans and everything.
oh yeah, I love life.
Yeah. Well, I want to definitely wind it down and let you go, but I'd be remiss if I did not ask about Repo Man. I gotta know what the conversation was like leading up to you becoming Repo Man and what you did to make it so special and memorable.
I met with Vince. We were at TV one day. We're in his office at the TV place, and he says, Barry, he says, what are we going to do with you? And I said, I kind of came up with a gimmick. And he says, well, what is it? And I said, the Repo Man. He goes, the Repo Man. I said, yeah, I used to steal cars, you know, I had to repo them, you know, and I'd go in and I'd repo the car. I said, in real life. And I said, and sometimes it gets to be pretty hairy, you know. And he says, well, you know, we don't need a repo man here, you know. And I said, well, we're 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 into a lot of gimmicks up here. I said, I got the perfect gimmick. I said, I can sneak around. I can be kind of like the Riddler and Batman. I said, but I'll be a tough son of a gun as that guy.
Yeah.
And I said, I can, steal kids' bikes, I can steal cars, I can, rough up old ladies or whatever, and then I'll wrestle everybody, and it's not going to be a main event match all the time, but I can wrestle all the main event guys and do angles with them and get them over and do whatever. And I said, I want to be the biggest heel of all time, and then I want to turn babyface, and I want to do a bunch of stuff for Make-A-Wish. Mm-hmm. He said, Barry, I like that idea. I said, let's think about this. So that was the thought. And then he came up with the look and the character and all that stuff. And then the first vignette we did, we had a car that I was going to break into and didn't have the keys. And they said to me, can you get in that car? I said, oh, yeah, I can get in that car. And they said, how are you going to get in? I said, I'm just going to kick the window in. They said, you can't kick that window in. I said, yeah, I can. I have kicked windows in.
Yeah.
I said, just roll it down just a quarter of an inch so it cheats a little bit. If it's rolled up all the way, then I got a tough time. So we're doing the vignette when they come at night, they got the cameras on there, and it was time for me to kick it in. I kicked it in, I put my leg right through that thing. First shot at it. And Vince went crazy. He goes, I love it. This is going to be great. And then we started doing some more vignettes and all that. And that's how it all started. And then after about a year or so, it started to kind of not work right. It was like some people were starting to like it,
Mm-hmm.
The heelish part was kind of going away. And I went to Vince. I said, Vince, I think it's time to change me babyface. And he says, Barry, I'm sorry. He goes, I'm not going to change your baby face. You're not going to be a baby face. Mm-hmm. I said, Vince, I said, that's what the whole agreement was going to be. And he says, yeah, we're not going to make the Repo Man a baby face. I said, well, I'm going to put my notice in then. So I put my notice in and I worked a couple more months and that was it.
Wow.
Repo Man.
Repo Man. That's good. It sucks that you weren't able to do more of the Make-A-Wish stuff, I will say.
Yeah. So that was my goal, and it never happened. I did a few Make-A-Wish deals, was Demolition, and I really thought that it was a great thing,
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's still stuck in the minds of millions of fans. I grew up with the Repo Man action figure. So that's awesome though that you were still able to at least get your idea out there. And who knows? Who knows? Maybe Repo Man shows up doing Make-A-Wish someday. Still time.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
But thank you so much. I want to say for your
Yeah.
time, Barry. This has been really fun sitting down with you.
Yeah, pleasure meeting you. And how do I watch your podcast?
It is Rewind Recap Relive on YouTube, but nobody remembers that, so I'm going to send you a link directly to the channel.
Okay.
And I'll email you a link.
So do you have like 10 million people watching you?
Oh, I wish. We just hit 25,000 subscribers. So it's not nothing.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
That's huge. Good for you. Well, let's hope that you can get 1 million people.
Yeah, let's hope 1 million people watch this one. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Oh, and while we're on here though, I do have somebody that's writing a book on me.
Oh, so let's promote it. Yeah.
That's why I'm it's hard for me to do these because I'm on the freaking line all the time, and it's I have no time with everything I do anyways. But yeah, there's going to be a book coming out, so when it comes out, please buy it.
Yeah,
it's just going to be stories of Bill and I, and then after this book's out, then I think Bill's going to do a book, and then we're going to do one together as Demolition, just tell wrestling stories and a little bit more in-depth stuff.
No, that's huge. Does it have a title or not yet?
Nothing yet. But I don't know exactly when it's going to come out. But got quite a few pages done already, and some of them are pretty good.
Great. So, well, when it does come out, I will definitely help promote it, and you're more than welcome to come back on whenever you want.
I would love to. I'd love to.
Rewind, Recap, Relive. For over 50 episodes, the revolutionary force in wrestling interview.